Welcome back to the Volvo 5-cylinder channel. Today we are diagnosing a no start issue on my Volvo. So the car has been sitting for a few weeks. I've had the luxury of having another ride, so it's just been sitting doing nothing basically, and when I went to start it, the engine turns just fine. But for some reason it doesn't want to start, so now it's hooked up to a charger. So let's go over the basic of diagnosing a no start issue. I've actually done some off-camera work before starting this video, because having a non-starting car is not really the greatest inspiration for making a video, but now I think I have found the issue. So the way I went about it was, when I turn the key, I can hear and I can see, you can feel really that the engine is turning okay. So next thing, of course, that comes to mind, 1 second, I'll plug out the charger to have it make less noise. I'm charging my battery because I basically drained the battery. The next thing I did was actually check, do I have fuel? On a regular 850, here, once you remove this cover, you can actually check if you have pressure. You can do this with a, you shouldn't do it, but you can do it with a regular tire pressure valve. The cap is the same as on your tires, so you just check there, do you have pressure? Do you not? The fuel pressure regulator is located under here, but me, I have this external regulator, so I actually, in order to see that, I took a video of it. The second thing that I started to look at, once I knew that I have the appropriate fuel pressure, I actually suspected that the regulator, since it's an aftermarket, would have been just somehow out of spec, so I added some more pressure. That's why you see on the video that I have a 3.2 bars pressure there. The next thing that when checking over the basics, was to look at the spark. Do I have spark? And to see this, I actually removed spark plug number 1, connected it to the wire, put it so that the spark plug grounds, and I also took a video of that, since I was not able to see it from within the car. I'm alone diagnosing, so this is a bit more trickier than it's good to have a friend when doing these two things. Then we also have the possible issue with the immobilizer. The immobilizer is actually located, I have no idea if you will see anything. It's located, yeah, it's a hornet's nest. But anyway, up here you will see, hopefully, you will see the immobilizer, and if we go further in up here, there are a bunch of relays. One of them is for the immobilizer. It is a brown one. Now what this immobilizer does, or this relay to the immobilizer does, it cuts fuel, it cuts ignition, and it also cuts the starter engine. Now I know I have ignition, I know the fuel pump is running, and the starter motor is turning, so no, it should not in any reasonable way be that. What I of course also could do is just use my other key to see if it's something with the non-starting issue with detecting the key. My car does not have the 95 version where you have this special little pin or tab that you have to put into the magnetic holder, but this is rather has a chip inside the key, so I could have tried that. I also tried one of my favorite tricks that actually has worked for me a few times in the past, that I had the battery disconnected for 30 minutes. That did not actually help me here. So let's go around to see the next thing you can check. You can of course check your timing belt if it's jumped. Now I know I have changed this timing belt very recently, and the tensioner and all these things you can see in my previous video, so this is not one of my suspicions. If your car starts but immediately stops, it might be that you have your airflow sensor, mass airflow sensor. Mine is located here. If you disconnect that and your car starts and keeps on running, then you know that you have a bad mass airflow sensor. Now in my case I have not tried disconnecting it yet, but that would be if I don't know really what I'm doing. I would then try just disconnecting the airflow sensor to do that. Then we have another thing you might want to try, and that is actually here on underneath the thermostat housing you have a, as you can see there with a piece of tape, there is actually a sensor for the coolant temperature, and this is supposed to impact also if your car starts or not, if the fuel correction, if the water temperature sensor is malfunctioning. But I actually just threw into Google that I have spark and fuel but not starting, and the result I got then was actually the injector relay. And let's see if I can get you some numbers. This is the one, it's located right here under the French shroud, and what I found was that here we have one mangled wire and also another one. The one when I found it, this was a lot more greener, so now I know I have two wires that actually have been taking some damage from somewhere. So I will actually just replace these wires or actually fix them, and then check these other ones to see that everything seems to be okay. Because now when I removed my spark plug after turning the engine for about 1 minute, I could see that the spark plug was still dry. And a still dry spark plug, after you have fuel pressure, you have spark, then there's a high probability that the injectors are not firing. They can of course be, the injectors can of course all be seized, all 5 of them, but considering the short amount of time, I would say that's highly unlikely. We can go through other basic things. We have of course the classic ones. We have the fuses. Number 1, engine control unit. Number 2, pump. And then number 4 and number 8, these are the immobilizer ones. I checked all of them. And then I know that if I open this bolt, this bolt, this bolt, under here I have a relay that says I think 1 or 3 or 1 or 2. This is the fuel pump relay. But I know I have fuel pressure, and I can actually, in my car, I hear the fuel pump. You can hear it on a stock car, but you kind of have to get the feeling of what you're listening for. When you turn the key into position 2, the fuel pump will run for 2 seconds. So this is a good thing if you have a Volvo 850 or V70, just to get to know this sound, that when you turn the key into position 2, you will hear the fuel pump for 2 seconds. And if you have, I think, less fuel in the tank, the sound gets more prominent. So that's the one way you'll know if your fuel pump is broken. If you happen to actually have a bad fuel pump relay, these are actually a thing that go out. Not uncommon that they go. Then what happens, as I understood, in the fuel pump relay is that the solderings or solderings go bad, they crack. So you can actually open this and then resolder them, or just buy a new one. I think the price is quite okay, like $30 or euros. And or you could try resoldering it. There is also, if you are on the road and nowhere near, just Google how you can take actually in the place where you have this relay. You can actually just take a wire and take from the 12 volt directly into the feed hole. So that's the way you can keep the fuel pump constantly going even when you have no power on. So that's one way to really get home or get to your nearest garage. If this happens, I mean, you just need to Google it and you'll find the answer sooner or later. Not I won't promise you will find it directly, but you'll find it. Also, I mean, the fuel pump itself can be bad. A bad thing that goes bad. It went bad for me once, and what I actually did was that I went in the back of the car, opened the fuel pump inspection door, and then I banged on the fuel pump itself with a hammer, and this caused the seizing of it to be unlodged temporarily and started the fuel pump, and I was able to drive home. So a fuel pump, bang on the fuel pump, try to fix the relay, or just use a jumper wire to go around it. And then one final thing that I actually found very helpful is that when you have, if you're suspecting you're not getting fuel, then you can use starter fluid, starter gas, something like that, to put here in the, or start spray on an aerosol can. This aerosol will allow you to, basically it will allow the car to fire a few times, and then you know it's a fuel issue, it's not an immobilizer issue, it's not a spark issue, it's not anything else. So a can of starting gas is actually quite handy here. I don't happen to have any at the moment, so I can't really do that. But for now I will just fix these two wires for the injector relay, as my strong suspicion is I have a completely dry spark plug, and even though I turned the engine for 1 minute, it tried to start it. So I'll come back with the results. Okay, so upon even closer inspection, this wire was actually broken from within. So now I'm heating up my soldering iron. I've got solder, I've got shrink wrap, and hopefully that'll do the trick. Okay, so I just had the car running again. It was this wire. For some reason this wire is shorter than all the other ones, so there has been some strain on it. So I just sliced in a bit more wire there, added some heat shrink, and finally some tape. And now I'll just put the thing back together, and I'm basically happy to have the car running again. This time the fix was simple and in all respects free. So thank you, and see you in the next one.